Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, crypto. In 2025, Iran's crypto ecosystem swelled to more than $7.78 billion, according to Chainalysis, marking a notable acceleration from prior years amid economic collapse and geopolitical turmoil. For ordinary Iranians, roughly 1 in 6 of the population, crypto served as a vital lifeline. Facing relentless real depreciation, down nearly 90% since 2018, chronic inflation of about 40 to 50%, and frequent power blackouts or internet shutdowns during protests, citizens turned to Bitcoin and stable coins like US dollar-pegged stablecoins, USDT, on the Tron network to hedge savings, facilitate remittances, and move value when traditional banking failed. Spikes in Bitcoin withdrawals to personal wallets often coincided with domestic unrest and regional conflicts. Yet this parallel financial system has also become a powerful tool for the state. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps steadily tightened its grip on Iran's crypto flows. IRGC-linked addresses received more than $3 billion in 2025, up from over $2 billion in 2024, with their share rising to more than 50% of total Iranian crypto inflows by the end of 2025. These figures represent conservative lower bounds based only on identified and sanctioned wallets. The regime and its proxies use these funds to facilitate illicit oil sales, procure dual-use goods for missile and drone programs, finance regional militias, such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and sustain sanctions evasion operations. USDT on Tron emerged as the preferred rail for its speed, liquidity, and relative resilience. Iran's Ministry of Defense even began openly offering to accept cryptocurrency for arms exports. This dual-use nature of cryptocurrency echoes the history of Tor. Designed for secure communication, Tor now powers both legitimate privacy efforts and dissidents and repressive regimes, as well as the vast criminal ecosystems of the dark web. Just like Tor, the same technical features such as decentralization, pseudonymity, borderless transfers, and resistance to single-point censorship that help ordinary people escape tyranny also lets regimes and bad actors bypass accountability. Once oil proceeds and other regime revenues entered the crypto ecosystem, they moved through a sophisticated international pipeline designed to convert funds into usable military capabilities. Iranian oil, primarily purchased by Chinese quote-unquote teapot refineries, was shipped via shadow fleet tankers and often settled through shadow banking networks. Chinese teapot refineries are small, privately owned, independent refineries that process heavily discounted crude from sanctioned countries like Iran, thereby shielding major state-owned firms from sanctions risk. This may be what ends up happening with the oil that India just refused. Proceeds were then routed via front companies in the United Arab Emirates and Hong Kong, where Iranian facilitators converted them into stable coins, especially USDT on the Tron network. Now, USDT is offshore. However, my understanding, and I was going to look this up and I forgot to, is that what ends up happening is that the money that USDT takes is then converted into U.S. treasuries. So Circle and Tether specifically are taking the cash as such and converting it, buying U.S. treasuries with the cash. So it's kind of becoming a kind of quote-unquote petrodollar on its own. Key brokers who have already been sanctioned coordinated the purchase of more than $100 million in cryptocurrency tied directly to Iranian oil sales between 2023 and 2025. They operated networks of UAE and Hong Kong-based front companies. These funds finance procurement of critical components for Iran's drone and missile programs, electronics, semiconductors, batteries, and unmanned aerial vehicle parts, sourced mainly from suppliers in China and Hong Kong. Goods were frequently mislabeled and transshipped to evade export controls, ultimately reaching the Ministry of Defense and so on. For years, Dubai served as the central hub for these operations, leveraging its existing free zones, money changers, and informal networks. However, in early 2026, Emirati authorities arrested dozens of IRGC-linked money changers, shut down associated offices, and wade broader asset freezes, delivering one of the most significant disruptions yet to Tehran's sanctions evasion architecture. Even so, the underlying networks demonstrated resilience, adapting to new routes as pressure mounted. This reminds me so much of the Victor Boot stuff. I don't know if you guys maybe recall that. And what ended up happening was, even though the U.S. arrested Victor Boot and Victor Boot was sitting in prison in Missouri or wherever it was, the network still lived. It was alive. It was moving. It was still operating. The same shell companies were still being used. So it's really hard to shut these things down. And obviously now Victor Boot's back in Moscow and still active, so whatever. The final leg of the pipeline relies on a powerful new layer of professional criminal infrastructure, Chinese money laundering networks whose recent rapid development appears to be an unforeseen consequence of the imposition of capital controls in China, including a sweeping crypto ban and a strict $50,000 annual foreign exchange limit. These sophisticated profit-driven operations, frequently built around Telegram-based guarantee/escrow platforms, money mule networks, informal over-the-counter desks, and layered wallet structures, functioned like a full-service Amazon for criminals. In 2025 alone, the Chinese money laundering networks processed an estimated $16.1 billion in illicit crypto funds, accounting for roughly 20% of all known global crypto money laundering activity. Operating through more than 1,799 active wallets, they move the equivalent of about $44 million a day, which I guess is a lot, but also it doesn't seem like it's so much. Broader Chinese language escrow and underground banking networks handled even larger volumes, with TRM Labs estimating more than 100 billion to 103 billion in adjusted crypto flows last year. These services offered reliable laundering as a service, converting tainted stable coins, especially the above-mentioned USDT on Tron, into usable fiat currency like the US dollar, goods, or clean assets, while minimizing risk for clients. Despite enforcement actions such as FinCEN's 2025 designation of a Cambodia company as a primary money laundering concern, the networks demonstrated remarkable resilience, quickly migrating to new platforms and services, like I said, Victor Boot. While seemingly not under direct operational command and control by the CCP, these companies have still grown into a multi-billion-dollar industry with conspicuous longevity. Given the CCP's tight grip on China's financial system, internet and capital flows, and its aggressive crackdowns when it perceives threats to financial stability or political control, such large-scale cross-border activity would be extremely difficult to sustain without, at the very least, tacit tolerance from Beijing. The Trump administration's strongly pro-crypto domestic policies, including the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, stand in contrast to its aggressive enforcement against adversarial use of digital assets. On-chain intelligence sharpened U.S. focus on Iranian procurement networks, Russian stablecoin flows, and North Korean thefts. I recall, too, that the Russians, because of the war and sanctions, have also migrated into stablecoins as well. Crypto had evolved into an important battleground, a lifeline for civilians in sanctioned economies, and a tool for rogue regimes and criminal financing. As evasion networks adapt and migrate, the long-term success of disruption efforts remains to be seen.